Welcome to the Faith Forum, a series of talks with leading thinkers, best-selling authors, business leaders, philosophers, artists, and theologians of our time. We're so happy you've joined us, and we hope this podcast offers food for your spiritual journey. From Christ Episcopal Church in Charlotte, North Carolina, I'm the Reverend Chip Edens, and this is the Faith Forum.
So, welcome to this Faith Forum on teen mental health. Before I begin all of our introductions, I want to invite us into something, and this is for all of us, but particularly for the adults in the room, and particularly for the parents in the room. Today is Youth Sunday. We've heard in our services from brilliant youth preachers, we had youth readers. Today's a day to showcase the teenagers and the youth of our parish. And today's conversation is all about them. It's all about teen mental health. And so I want to just give you some disclaimers at the beginning. One, this is not a faith forum in the way that you're used to faith forums. If you came waiting kind of for an expert to give you the 5 steps to understand teen mental health, I think you might be in the wrong spot. But if you came to hear a conversation about teenagers, your teenagers, and the teenagers of Christ Church, where they are, what they feel, what they need, then you are in the right place. That's what this is going to be, is a chance for us to listen in and get some wisdom from these teens, okay? So I want to invite you, just a very brief moment, we're going to do a little centering, okay? So I don't know about y'all, but 10 o'clock on Sunday morning is sometimes a frantic time for a number of reasons. You just got some of the kids to Sunday school, everyone's dressed in here, which is a miracle, but you might feel a little frazzled. So if you're comfortable doing it, let's put our feet on the ground and let our bodies catch up with our souls and our hearts and our minds. And take a deep breath in. Breathe out. One more deep breath in. Breathe out. And as you keep breathing deeply, I invite you to let go of what you thought you would hear this morning. Let go of what you think you know about your teens, about what they need. As you let go of those things, I invite you to sit with open hands and open hearts and open ears as we take part in this experience together. We'll take one more breath. As we breathe out, if your eyes were closed, you can open them. If your eyes weren't closed and you're wondering what is going on, you can rejoice because it's over. And here we are at our Faith Forum time. So I want to do just a couple introductions. It's okay. And introduce our guest speaker today. So we have the honor and the joy of being joined by Zach Gottlieb. Zach is the founder of Talk with Zach, a Gen Z movement and community that hosts important conversations to change the culture, inspire activism, and make the world a better place. Talk with Zach has been featured in Time, Today, Couric Media, the Huffington Post, Challenge Success, and this last summer, Zach spoke at the Aspen Ideas Festival out in Colorado. His motto is, and I think we'll hear a bit about this, we can't change what we don't talk about. So you can learn more and follow, and I'll encourage you either now or later to go to Instagram, follow Talk with Zach to stay up to date and to see all the great work that Zach's doing. We're also joined by 3 of our own youth council members. We've got Ella Stevens, Caroline Hurlbert, and Lizzie Dillard, who are with us today. And so, like I alluded to already, this is going to be a conversation kind of moderated by me, but these are the stars of the show. Okay, this is where most of the conversation will be. So Zach, I think we want to start with you and talk with Zach in particular. So you started it in 2020 and right around the beginning of the pandemic. And so the whole world was going through the shutdown. You were a sophomore?
Yeah, I was going into my sophomore year.
Going into your sophomore year, and the world starts shutting down. All school goes online, but you also had some pretty major things happening in your life. Can you talk a bit about that?
Yeah, so the first week of COVID, actually, my grandfather, who I was really close with, passed away. And the message that I got after he passed, it wasn't like, feel what you feel. It was more, be strong, like, get through it, like, you'll be fine. And I wasn't really allowed to feel the emotions I was feeling. And that experience really hit me because I'm like, because I'm a guy, I can't really express my emotions. And then fast forward the summer before my sophomore year, summer of 2021, where we were emerging from COVID, and the media was like, teens have to talk about their mental health. And I'm like, we cannot do this at all. We're so scared to do it. There's so much stigma around it. So what I wanted to do is create a space where we can have these important conversations and create a space where there's genuine connection, because I know social media a lot of the time is so harmful for teens.
Yeah. And so when you first had this idea, did you talk about it with your friends? Did you like say, hey, we should talk about our mental health?
So when I started it, I was actually a little bit nervous about what my friends would say. I kind of just like went with it. I'm like, I have this idea. Like, if you guys are going to be on board with it, cool. If not, you're going to get on board with it. And that's pretty much what happened. Like, definitely, like, there were a couple people who like teased me. It was friendly though. But they all came around, which is really nice. And they can really see the value in the work I do. But it was not something that I was really reliant on what my friends wanted, because I know that a lot of people are resistant to talking about their mental health, so I knew that not everyone would immediately be really excited about a boy in particular talking about emotional well-being.
Yeah. I wonder, just thinking about that in general, kind of breaking the stigma and talking about mental health, I wonder if that resonates with y'all. Is it easy to talk about mental health? Is it a challenge?
I think that for a lot of people, even including girls, especially guys, but including girls, I feel like we're scared to be vulnerable with other people because we don't know how they're going to react. And we're so scared of worrying about whether people will like us. And we're afraid to show our authentic selves. But if you show your authentic self, then it helps others be more authentic.
Yeah.
Also, I feel it's gotten better. I feel like people have definitely become more open about it, but I feel like there's also just certain rules that people don't understand. Like, you can't talk about this, and you can talk about this, and you don't know how people are going to take it, and you feel like something's wrong with you, and you feel not accepted, and you feel like no one else in the world understands what you're going through, because you want people to like you, and it's something that, especially as a teenager, you value a lot in life. And when you feel like you want everyone to like you, you feel like there can't be anything wrong with you. And not that there's anything wrong with mental health. If anything, it's good to talk about it. And we need to talk about it more. And I definitely think it's gotten better, just from my friends in school and the community that I'm surrounded with.
I also think, like what Zach said about after the pandemic, or during the pandemic, there's a lot more push for people to talk about their mental health, but there wasn't necessarily a space for us to talk about our mental health, so people are encouraging us to be open, but that's such a personal thing. It's hard to be open, and then being open on social media is a very hard thing to do when you feel like you're supposed to be presenting your best self, but mental health may not be your best self necessarily. So I think having platforms like, or seeing platforms like Zach's or other people who are doing similar things, talking about their mental health on social media in particular, and being so open on a platform which is usually so fabricated, it can be really helpful for teenagers.
Yeah. Zach, I wonder, they've kind of named the next part of our conversation, which is social media in general. We've had people come through and talk in our faith forums before about social media and some of the ways it's misused, some of the ways it's harmful. So I wonder if you can tell me a bit about, what was your motivation for having these conversations on social media? Did you think about, is this going to work on this platform that's the source of a lot of stress for people?
Obviously, social media is a platform that we could all agree isn't the most healthy, but I know teens are there, and I know teens are looking and they're consuming content on there, so I wanted to meet teens where they're at and honestly provide a refreshing break from all the toxic comparison, the constant feeling like they have to know what other people are doing and feeling like everyone else is living their best lives. So I'm trying to provide that break from all of that, and then also I know teens are there. I know teens are looking for content on there.
Yeah, that's awesome. It's almost like, you probably wouldn't use this phrase, but trying to redeem the platform and see that it actually, because people are there, I think that's a beautiful point.
Yeah, and there are definitely positive aspects of social media. I know we've been kind of slamming it a little bit, but it is a great place to connect if you use it for that, and I try to be as authentic as possible. I know that there's so many platforms that just don't do a good job of putting their real self out there, but there are a lot that are starting to do that, which is really nice to see.
Yeah. Well, I think, so we just talked before we came in here about this thing that's happening right now, which is college acceptance or rejection letters are hitting the mailbox. They're coming out right now, so if you know a senior in high school, you know that already. But if you didn't, that might be the kind of disturbance in the force over the last the last little bit, because that's a huge, huge thing. And so I wonder if you can talk about, because this was news to me, the college acceptance videos and things that are going on. You have a piece coming out pretty soon about what's going on.
I do. And the piece is about, I'm sure you guys have seen these videos where you get super emotional opening the letters and they're I'm never going to get in. And then, of course, they open it and there's an acceptance, right? So the problem with these videos, it's amazing to see people get into their dream schools, but imagine you're someone who didn't get in, and you go online and you see all these people posting, I got into my dream school, I got in here, I got in here. Or maybe it's something like, whoa, I'm so sad I didn't get into Harvard, but I got into Yale, so, It's have some perspective, right? But when you go online and you see people getting in everywhere that they want to go to, and you don't, you feel alone, because no one really posts, I didn't get in anywhere. I've definitely seen those, but they're just in a sea of all these acceptance videos where people just feel it's working out for everyone but me. And it's just this feeling of you start comparing yourself. And college decisions, if you guys are familiar, if you have teens applying to colleges, it is worse than ever now. There's perfect applicants aren't getting in. There's no science to it. There's no rhyme or reason. It's crazy. And when people start determining their self-worth based on hey, this random person on the internet got in, but I didn't, it can be really harmful.
Yeah. I wonder if y'all have any thoughts on what Zach said. Does that?
Yeah, I think college has become something that it's slow, because it started being juniors would worry about it, and then slowly sophomores started worrying about it, and then freshmen, and then eighth graders, or it's I know eighth graders who have college counselors, which is crazy. But just that push to pretty much everything you do to have extracurriculars has to do with getting into college, and it's straight away from do you really enjoy it to more, is this going to look good on the application? So I think that is a big issue with that access to seeing everyone else succeed, is that you're feeling more pressure to do more and more and more and more, which is not sustainable, and it can be harmful to watch that. And then there's one quote, I don't remember who it was by, but we on social media are comparing our insides to other people's outsides, which I think is a good quote to remember when we're looking at teens and their outlook on social media.
Yeah. Thanks, Ella.
Similar to what Ella said, I just think it's crazy that at such a young age that we're so worried about college. And I mean, I get stressed out. I mean, I'm only a sophomore, and I get stressed out about college and extracurriculars, and I see what other people are doing in my grade, and I'll have conversations with friends, and they're doing all of these like amazing things and starting all these service projects, and it's just crazy. And it's like, I don't know if, like, should I be doing that? But then it's like, is it really authentic of me to be doing that? Or am I doing it just because everyone else is doing it? So then it becomes like, you want to do something that you're passionate about. And I feel like there's just this pressure to do. There's like a list of things you need to do. It's like to get into your college. And I just feel like it's a lot of pressure at such a young age. And I feel like it definitely, social media, the videos just don't help, because then it just reminds you of all the things you need to be doing, or what is that person doing on the internet?
Yeah, and it doesn't always work. Zach, what you just said. That
you could do literally everything that these videos say. Like, you have to do this to get into college and not get in. It's just such like, it's insane. It's insane.
Yeah. Yeah. Caroline?
So I'm a junior, and so college is always at the forefront of my mind, and it is a conversation that I probably have with someone once a day. I don't know who it is, but and there's just this idea that you have to be perfect, and you have to have all these things, and you have to pretend you're someone you're not at the root of it, because you're doing all these things to be perfect when no person is ever perfect. And you're so focused on the future, and you're forgetting who you are. And a lot of the time I have to catch myself, because a lot of the things I'll sign up for that I don't want to do, but I think in my head, I'm like, this will be good for college, or my teachers will be proud of me for doing this, and it'll look good. But at the end of the day, it's not your passion, and it's not what you stand for. And the expectation to be perfect, and this list of all these things that you have to do, and you have to have all of them, and you have to be perfect at all of them. It's not real, and it's not sustainable, because no one is like that. And I think a lot of people put pressure on you. I think your teachers put pressure on you to do this, your parents put pressure on you to do this. And for me, it's mostly myself putting pressure on myself to do this. And I've gotten better at just stepping back and remembering that you're not perfect. And college, you don't have to be perfect to go to college.
Yeah. Well, I think this is a really great segue to the next part of the conversation. But I will say, I said you're not going to get 5 takeaways. Here's one takeaway. Don't ask a junior or senior where they're going to college. Do you hear me? Don't do it. If they want to volunteer the information, they will. But you can talk about the weather. You can talk about anything else, really. But just don't, because of the weight that kind of puts on folks. So I want to talk now about y'all's experience in general as teenagers in 2023. But I want to invite folks who are not teenagers right now, folks who are a little older. In your mind's eye, remember what it was like for you to be a teenager. All right, are you going there? Don't see any tears yet. But remember what it was like. Now, I don't know what decade it was, but I would imagine there's some things that are pretty common across all of human experience. You had a lot of feelings you didn't understand. You probably put a lot of stock in what other people thought, your friends, your parents, your teachers. You probably had this ideal version of yourself that you needed to be, that someone told you needed to be that. How many of you felt like you met that ideal as a teen? Yeah, I don't see many. I see a couple hands. Not many. Okay. And then here's one just fun side question. When's the last time anyone asked you where you went to college or what your GPA was? Teenagers, yes, that's a common question. Adults, doesn't happen. That's the incredible thing that happens when you get, like the moment you get to college, people stop asking. Anyway, okay. So you've now thought of your teenage years. I want you to realize, and this is what the next part of our conversation will be, how much the world has changed. humans haven't changed that much, so we still feel a lot of the same things. But I wonder if y'all, starting with Zach, if you can just tell us what is it like to be a teenager these days?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of what you said obviously are true for all generations, but I think like while every generation is like, we're so different than our parents, this is so true for this generation because the world is just such a different place. Like, social media has changed our lives. It's changed our perception of self, our perception of others. And then it's also just a scarier world. Like, there's more violence, and there are just a lot of things going on now that create this like fear in the backdrop of everything else we're dealing with. And then obviously, like, I mean, we've talked about social media a lot. It's a huge part of our lives. We'll like always like, I feel like every time anyone has a spare moment, we're like going to our phones, and this promotes the like very unhealthy habit of going there and looking on there and getting sucked in, and just like being attracted to this digital world a little too much.
Yeah. I wonder how that resonates.
For me, I feel like a lot of the emotions and the experiences we go through, that our parents went through, that our grandparents went through, are very similar. But because of technology and social media, it feels like everything is just amplified to a whole nother level. Because for comparison, for example, with social media, comparison is on a whole nother level. It's constant. You see what your friends are doing all the time. You see what the life you're supposed to have. And everything's amplified because the technological revolution that we've just experienced, that no one has lived through and no one has grown up with phones, and we're the first generation to do that, and there's no rules to do it, and it's kind of like a free-for-all, and it's everything. Every good experience is we highlight it on social media, and every bad experience we don't, and we feel these emotions on a whole nother level because of technology and the constant access to it.
No, go ahead.
I think at its core, being a teenager, like both of you have already said, so many similar emotions, the being mad at your parents, so I'm going to my room, shut the door. But, and like all the issues with friends, that's something that pretty much every teenager has gone through at whatever generation or decade that happened in. But I think the issue now is that we've been given this escape world, the digital world. So if we're having a hard time in our real lives with our parents or with our friends, we can go escape to this. And the issue with the escape is that we're escaping to a world where everyone's presenting a version of themselves that looks absolutely perfect. And so we're having a hard time and we're escaping, and it's like activating our brains in a way that is like designed to keep us coming back. But our escape is something that's totally unrealistic, and it's like putting more pressure on us. So like trying to get away from the hardships in our lives and like going on your phone when you're bored or something is activating your brain in a way that's like very harmful, I think. And that's why like social media can be good when it's in a balance, but teenagers specifically, your brain isn't fully developed. You don't have that impulse control fully in place yet. And so to be asked to regulate yourself on whether you can pick up your phone and have the access to the entire world or go talk to your parents is a difficult question to ask kids to do, and to provide them with that opportunity can be a little unfair sometimes. And I think that's why we've been seeing such a huge spike in mental health issues. Obviously, social media is not the only issue, but yeah.
Similar to what Caroline said, I feel like we have just access. We just know what our friends are doing constantly, and we are so in touch with like everything that our friends are doing. I mean, like I'll be in my kitchen and I'll have like my phone up and I'm sending a video to my friend, like just on an everyday basis. And it's like, yes, that seems so harmless. And it's like, oh, I'm just talking to my friend. I'd be doing that in person anyway. But it's like, do you really have a chance to just be with like yourself, to be at peace with yourself? And I feel like that's a problem that even like, I mean, I have a hard time just sitting just by myself and not doing anything. I think that's a hard thing for anyone to do, but I feel like that's a problem because we should really be able to just sit down and just be comfortable with ourselves and not feel like we have to be doing something to be talking to someone constantly. And I feel like that's something social media has made so normal, but that's really not really healthy, because we should be able to just be calm and centered.
Yeah, going off that really fast, and how there's this kind of pressure to do something a lot of the time. Before social media, like if people were going out and doing things without us, like you just wouldn't know about it, and there's something nice about that. But now it's like if someone doesn't invite you to something, you feel really bad about it. And then even if you do get invited but don't go and you see people posting, there's this like fear of missing out that is really palpable.
To what Lizzie was saying, the thing about being alone, I think it's something that I think about a lot. And in school, we actually talk about the idea of solitude and how if we don't have solitude, we don't have empathy. And I think one of the biggest problems for me with social media and always having my phone is that I'm never alone with myself, and I can always distract myself, even when I don't even want a distraction. It's just kind of like a second instinct to pick up my phone and start scrolling on whatever social media I'm gonna scroll on. But if we can't be alone with ourselves, then we don't even know who we are. And I always ask this question, who are we without the influence of others? Because social media is a constant influence of other people on us. It's constant seeing other people, what they're doing, what your friends are doing. But if we don't know who we are without all that and just by ourselves, then we're never gonna be our authentic selves, because we're never gonna know. And I think it takes a lot of strength to sometimes just put the phone down and think or journal, or I like to read when I'm doing this, and just think about where you are, what your goals are, what like is your high of the day and your low of the day, and just be quiet and find a place that you can find who you truly are.
I think I always talk about social media. I need to stop. But I think one big thing specifically with teenagers and social media and why that is such a strange experience is that we're giving kids this platform which you're meant to be posting about yourself on. And it's essentially you're putting your identity online. But when you're a kid, you don't really know who you are yet. And so you're growing up being asked to present like this perfect version of yourself, and you don't even know who you are yet. And that's a very, very strange thing to ask kids to do. And I think that like social media addiction, like you keep coming back to it, even if you know it's bad for you. But like you're growing up with these expectations to be perfect and to present your identity, and your identity has to be perfect, but you don't even know your identity yet, which is a very difficult thing to be faced with as a child, which is something that no generation's ever done before, is grow up with that pressure.
Yeah. Or if I think there has been the pressure, but the stakes have not been so high. Mm-hmm. Because I'm so glad that social media wasn't around when I was in middle school, because no one will see the haircuts I had. Right? Like it's fine, they're gone. I've made sure that every picture has been burned, and it's just not, you won't exist. That's not the case for y'all, and so you kind of feel like you have to, and talking about college applications, it almost feels like you're like in a job interview from the moment you go on, because I know there's all this talk about, when you're getting hired for a job, they'll look at your social media, and colleges will look, and and so that pressure just gets ratcheted up. So I wonder, this is a good place to talk about bullying in particular, but this idea, Ella, I think you mentioned the experience that everyone's had of going to your room to kind of get away from parents or siblings or whatever it is. Can you imagine now, adults in the room, if you went to your room to get away and everyone followed you? Because that's what happens. Or you got bullied at school, but thank goodness you were going to get on the bus and go home, and they weren't there. Well, the bullies follow you, and they're with you all the time. And if you're not watching them, you don't know what they're up to, because they're, could be spinning. So I wonder, Zach, if you can talk a bit about that reality.
Sure. So like you said back then, it's like when you weren't with people, literally, you could just get away and feel that sense of security and safety. But now wherever you are, you could be in your room, in your own home, and people can be harassing you online, and they could be posting pictures of you that will be there forever. And there's something about that permanence that's so scary, and the feeling of like never really being able to escape what someone says about you, what someone posts about you, any of that.
Yeah. Well, I wonder, we've got a little gender divide on the stage, so I want to name that and talk a bit about something you've written about. I've seen a couple posts, and then you've done a few videos on your Instagram about toxic masculinity and how that shows up in mental health conversations. You alluded to it at the beginning, but can you say more about that?
Sure. The thing about toxic masculinity is that it promotes that there's one definition of what it looks like to be a man. Like, you have to be really powerful and strong, and the only emotion you can feel is anger, which is extremely unhealthy, obviously. And how this affects mental health conversations is it makes us very resistant and scared to talk about it, when in reality, for me, it's like, you have to be strong to talk and be open, because holding in your emotions, you're doing that out of fear. You're doing that because you're afraid to be judged. But when you take that step, when you get past it and speak up, that's really where we see change. That's like my motto. You were saying, we can't change what we don't talk about. And the other thing about toxic masculinity and why it's so persistent is that when men grow up and when they're told from a very young age, you have to keep your emotions in, you can't talk about it, then when they grow up and they teach their sons, they're teaching them the same message. So then their kids are going to have that same mindset of, I can't talk about how I feel. And it's this cycle of people who end up feeling really lonely because they can't share.
Yeah. And not to leave girls out, because unfortunately the mental health kind of crisis that we're in, it's true across ages, but particularly true with teens and across gender. The CDC just came out with some data about 2 weeks ago that 3 in 5 teenage girls felt persistent sadness in 2021, which was double the rate of boys, and has been higher than any other time in history. And so we've been talking about social media and causes and all of that, but I wonder if that rings true for you, maybe not personally, but maybe so, or in your friends.
Yeah, I don't know how the study was done to determine that number, but that number might also be because, like what Zach was talking about, if it was like a survey that teenagers were taking, the guy may have actually been feeling persistently sad, but not said anything about it because they felt like they couldn't, and the girls could. And then also, I mean, toxic masculinity is really harmful for guys to have to deal with, but then also in relationships with women, like feeling like because I've had male friends, like feeling like you're the only one who's actually feeling anything, then talking to them, you can't get through to them. It creates a barrier between, in relationships between two people, and I think if that barrier can be broken and we can take that stigma away from men for having to not be able to feel anything, then that could create a lot of stronger relationships between people.
Yeah. And that's the truth of what we're talking about. So I'm going to move past the kind of binary, because what we're talking about does affect all of us. And y'all probably heard that, when we rail against toxic masculinity or things like that, or even when we talk about the patriarchy in general, the patriarchy hurts everyone, men, women, non-binary folks. It hurts the full spectrum. So I just want to name, as I've named the differences between the genders, that this really affects us all in pretty profound ways. Even if we're not dealing with it, we're in relationships that it shows up.
I feel like especially in romantic relationships or just friendships, guys are expected to just not have reactions to anything. I mean, they literally, I can't really think of a time that I've seen where a guy has an equal reaction to a girl. I mean, and that's not authentic. I really don't think that that's authentic. I feel like there's a lot of times where their friends or maybe even their family members, I don't know, they feel like they have to just cover up these emotions that they have, and it just causes a lot of damage, because not only does, their friend or their girlfriend or whatever doesn't, maybe they feel less hurt, and it hurts them indirectly. So not only is it just bad and harmful for the guy in the situation, it's also harmful for the people around him, because then they feel like, oh, well, I can't be feeling anything because you're not feeling anything. And it just kind of causes like a spiral and a chain reaction.
I gotta hand it to my English teacher for this one, but the whole year we've been reading books about feminism and toxic masculinity. And it has changed my whole perspective about it. So if you guys want to read Macbeth, please do. It's a classic, but if anything, we've read books, every unit's a new book, and it is always tied to something related to toxic masculinity. And they're from Macbeth to novels released a couple years ago. And the one recurring theme is always that toxic masculinity leads to so much unnecessary violence, and it's just not good. And we talk a lot about how we can see the world reflected through the books we read, because this is a problem that we've had forever. And it's gotten better in some ways, but the root of the problem is still there. And I think at the basis of it, it's just we think people are so different from one another, and we have such different reactions to things, when really we're all human beings and we all feel these emotions. And if we're constricting people to only feeling certain emotions or only feeling minimal emotions, then you're stopping people from fully processing things, from accepting who they are, and reflecting on what they experience so they can be better people and have empathy with others. And I think social media, because we're never alone, we can't ever reflect on that. And we need to be able to do that to form meaningful connections with others and better coexist with the people we love.
I also think, this is like a life group shout out, but I think that places like Life Group, which is just high schoolers coming together and talking about real life things that we just don't really have an opportunity to talk about in other spaces. And I think that that is a great way for people to be authentic. And I think places like that should be open to other people. And I mean, I'm lucky that Alice is amazing, and I'm able to bring my friends from other churches, other schools, and I'm able to bring them, and it's a space for people to talk about their emotions, guys and girls. And it's great because we really just, you can't do that really anywhere. I can't think of another place that can really do that like Life Group, so.
Yeah. Well, I think, so now as we kind of make the turn, I'd love to talk about what we can do to support y'all, to support teens. So what as parents, what as a church community can we do? It sounds like you're already, I love how you've kind of built in speed bumps on people's Instagrams. It sounds like that's the idea, that while you're scrolling, you stop and see, okay, let me listen to this conversation that Zach's having with Marissa Franco or someone, and learn a little something. But I wonder if, Zach, you could tell us, what do you think parents could do? What do you think we could do as a community to help?
I'll start with parents. I know parents obviously want to connect with their teens, but don't know exactly how. The one thing that I want to caution you of is if you go to your teen and you're like demanding them to like tell you things and going like, and just being very pushy about like, hey, like tell me what's going on in your life, that can feel a little overwhelming, especially because your teen might be like, hey, if I say this, I might get in trouble. So instead of being like, tell me if something goes wrong, but if something does, then you're grounded for 2 months. It's like, you know, come to me, let's have a conversation about it so we could remedy the situation. So that's what I'd say for parents, like create a safe space where they can come to you. That's really important. Make sure they know that you're a resource that wants to help them and not someone that they have to like hide what they're really feeling or something that happened to them from. For a community like this, as you were saying, the group you have is amazing. I had dinner with them last night, and we had a very open conversation, which I think is really special. And it sounds like you guys are doing this weekly, so it's this like recurring, we feel comfortable with each other, we're going to be very open. And I think things like that, especially for teenagers, is so important because it prepares you not only for your lives now, but also moving into adulthood, how to have these conversations.
Yeah, that's awesome. I wonder what y'all's thoughts are.
I feel like this is something I actually learned this year, and it's helped me and my parents so much. And I come home from school or after school sports, and I come home after a long day. I mean, I'm like awake at 6, and I come home at 5:30 at the end of the day. Like, it's a long day. And I come home, my parents are so excited to talk to me, and they're like, oh, how was your day? And it's great. I'll respond, and I'll say, oh, it was good. And, like, I won't say anything else. And I think I feel like a lot of people can say the exact same thing. But then later I'll be like, I'll start talking to them like, oh, I had such a good day, and I'll go into more detail. And I think something I do now is I come home, and I don't really talk to my parents that much. I'll say good, and then I'll go upstairs, and I'll just change my clothes, I'll just relax, and I'll take a second, and then I'll come home, or come back downstairs, and I can have a real conversation with them. And then I can ask them, how was your day? And our conversation is so much more productive and intentional when I've taken that time to myself after a long day and been social all day. And if I can just take those 30 minutes when I come home to be alone, or even go on my phone if I want to, then I can come home and have an intentional conversation with my parents, and I feel like my relationship with my family is so much better because of that. So.
For me, I feel like as a teenager, you idolize your parents in a way, and you want them to accept you, you want them to think highly of you, you want to make them proud. And whenever I have feeling sad or I feel like I have let them down in a way, I don't tell them. I don't talk to them about it. I don't tell anyone about it, because we share our successes, but we keep our failures to ourselves. And I think just that alone is so harmful as a teenager, because you like talking about it, like at life group or with your friends or just someone, helps so much. And people underestimate the power of connecting with someone and someone relating to you and someone empathizing with you in a situation. And as a teenager, if I had a message to give, it would just be to talk to your parents, to talk to someone about whatever you're feeling. And as a parent, I mean, just be open to that, and don't give advice, but don't force the advice on them, and let there be some breathing room, if that makes sense. Or find ways for your teen to open up about whatever it is. And I highly recommend something like life group, because it's so easy to feel heard and seen and validated in whatever you're feeling.
I think this is really just a life group promo, isn't it? But I think the thing about life group, because I only started coming last year because Lizzie introduced me to it, but I think the beauty of it is that we come into Alice's house and we put our phone, there's a basket, please put your phones in the basket. We put our phones in the basket, and we go and we talk, and we come in a circle, and you're encouraged to share your high and low, and then we have a conversation, and you're not demanded to respond. You're listening to people talk, and you're allowed to give your insight if you would like, but you also don't have to. And I think creating a similar space like that at home, which is easier said than done, but where you're not feeling like you are forcing your kids to talk to you, and more it's like you're inviting them to talk to you, makes them want to do it more. So if my parents are like, how was your day? It's almost like an interview. I'm coming home after spending I'm just like so tired, and I just need a second, like Lizzie goes, I just need that 30 minutes, even just 30 minutes to go decompress. But I don't want to come home after a hard day and feel like I'm being interviewed about it. And I think that's the beauty of life group, is that I'm encouraged to share. I'm not forced to, which creating a space like that at home would be really helpful and productive.
Yeah. I think that's when I was a school chaplain, I often reminded parents that when kids get home from school, imagine if you had whatever your school schedule is, 4 to 8 hour-and-a-half long meetings, back to back to back, on wildly different subjects, that you were supposed to be proficient in all of them, and then you immediately come home to another line of questions. Like just imagine if that was your working day, what you would feel, that's the same kind of place. So I wonder, we're nearing the end of our time, so Zach, I wonder if you can talk a bit about what you've learned from talks with Zach and this quest to, because everything we've talked about is kind of centered around performance, feeling like you have to perform perfection for social media, feeling like you have to perform perfection for your parents and your family. And so I wonder if you can talk a bit about, in this quest to maybe not perform, to be authentic, what you've learned.
Yeah. Well, one thing I've learned, first of all, is that a lot of the time we feel isolated in how we feel. I have this feature on my website where teens from all over the world can just write in questions, and we're really all dealing with the same things. Like people who live in Europe, people here, people in like Asia, it's insane. Like everyone is really dealing with the same things, and there is that performance anxiety where everyone's like, I need to measure up, and we're our own worst enemy. I feel like we don't look at ourselves the same way we look at others. And then also, one thing I've noticed is that we care a lot about relationships, both romantic and platonic. Those really drive our lives. And then as teenagers, I know you guys probably relate to this, but they're really confusing. Like, no one, like, we're figuring it all out. So when we're confused, that confusion turns into anxiety. And another thing about relationships is that when we feel lonely, the Surgeon General recently came out with a study that said that loneliness is the #1 cause of anxiety. So when we feel lonely, we get anxious, and then that anxiety, like, it spirals, and we really spiral because at the end of the day, we're confused. We don't know, is it something we did? Did we measure up? Did people like us? And it's this, like, validation that we don't know if we can get there.
Yeah. Well, I want to say we could talk forever and ever about all of this, but we're at the end of our time. And so I just want to say thank you to all of you. Thank you to Caroline, to Lizzie, to Ella for being here. Thank you, Zach, so much for coming all the way from the West Coast to be here with us and to meet with our youth. I do want to say at Christ Church, we're building a pretty vibrant well-being ministry. And so if this has brought up anything for you, or if you think now might be the time to reach out for help or to start having conversations about your mental health, just know we have Molly and Alex, who are 2 therapists on staff. You can reach out to them, and they are always willing, even just to meet for a consultation. You're not committing yourself to, well, now I'm going to therapy, every day. You can just have one consultation to see where you are and what's going on. And that's true of every single member of Christ Church. So please reach out to them as we continue this conversation. And then this has been a life group advertisement, but in our youth ministry program, Alice DeVries is our high school youth minister. She's done great work along with a lot of other volunteers. Let's give you a round of applause for Alice. She loves that. She loves being the center of attention. But she has done a great job with a whole team of volunteers and generations of people at Christ Church to build a program where teens feel seen and heard and valued, to create what I like to call an achievement-free zone, where it's not about your resume, it's about you. So my hope is you can get to know Alice, love her, support her in all the work she's doing. Teens, sign up for life groups, sign up for a youth council, and adults, parents in particular, sit at her feet and figure out what she's doing at life group that you can do at home. I think that's how we transform lives. So again, thank you, Zach, so much for being here. It's been a real honor to listen to you and all your wisdom.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you for listening. We invite you to subscribe, leave us a 5-star review, and connect with Christ Church Charlotte on social media. If you'd like to attend a Faith Forum live, visit christchurchcharlotte.org/Faith Forum to view dates and details of upcoming talks.